No one ever warns you that the people you love the most can quietly become the reason you lose yourself. At just 22, I believed family was everything. Not because life had been kind to me, but because I made it kind for others. I was the girl who said yes even when my heart whispered no. The one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. The one who believed love meant sacrifice, endless, unquestioned sacrifice. My parents often said I was lucky. Lucky to have a roof over my head. Lucky to be loved. Lucky to belong. I held on to those words like a promise, never realizing how easily gratitude could be used as a leash. Every decision I made revolved around them, my studies, my friendships, even my dreams. If something made them uncomfortable, I let it go. If something made them proud, I embraced it, even when it wasn't mine to begin with. I trusted my sister with my secrets. I trusted my mother with my fears. I trusted my father's silence, believing it meant understanding. And I trusted the man I loved most, my partner, because everyone told me he was good for me. He smiled easily, spoke softly, and knew exactly what to say when I doubted myself. Around him, I learned to shrink just enough so he could feel tall. There were moments, small, quiet moments, when something felt wrong. Conversations stopped when I entered a room. My name was used in jokes that didn't feel funny. Plans were made without asking me first. But I told myself I was being sensitive. After all, love doesn't keep score, right? Love forgives. Love adjusts. Love understands. I worked part-time while studying, handing over most of what I earned without being asked. Family supports family, my mother would say, smiling. I nodded, proud to be needed. Proud to be useful. I didn't realize that being needed was slowly replacing being loved. At night, when the house was quiet, I would lie awake and imagine a future where everything made sense. Where the effort I gave would one day be returned. Where loyalty would be rewarded, not exploited. I pictured a life built on trust, solid, unbreakable. I never questioned whether the foundation beneath me was already cracking. What hurts the most isn't that I trusted them. It's that I never thought I needed to protect myself from them. Because at that moment, before the lies surfaced, before the masks slipped, before betrayal took its first breath, I truly believed I was safe. I believed I belonged. I believed love would never ask me to disappear for it. And that belief would soon cost me everything. Betrayal doesn't arrive loudly. It seeps in slowly, disguising itself as concern, as jokes, as what's best for you. And by the time you recognize it, it has already rewritten your reality. It began with small shifts I couldn't explain. My partner, once attentive, once gentle, grew distant in ways that felt intentional. His phone was always face down. Messages stopped mid-sentence. When I asked if something was wrong, he smiled and told me I was overthinking. My mother agreed. Men get stressed, she said. Don't create problems where there are none. So I swallowed my doubts, trusting their certainty over my instincts. Then came the money. My parents asked me to help more, temporarily, they said. Bills, emergencies, promises of repayment. I handed over my savings without hesitation. Every time I asked when things would stabilize, I was reminded of everything they had done for me. Gratitude became a weapon. Silence became my duty. The first crack came by accident. I overheard my sister on the phone late one night. My name floated through the hallway, followed by laughter that didn't sound kind. She was talking about me like I wasn't a person, more like a resource. Someone predictable. Someone easy to manage. When she noticed me standing there, she froze, then brushed it off. You're too sensitive, she said. We were joking, but something inside me shifted. Days later, the truth hit harder. I saw a message on my partner's phone, one he forgot to delete. It wasn't dramatic. No love confession. No explicit betrayal. Just familiarity. Comfort. Intimacy that no longer belonged to me. The sender was someone I knew. Someone my family had been encouraging me to trust. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He explained it. He said I had changed. That I was too emotional. Too focused on family. He said it just happened. And the worst part, my family stood by him. They told me to forgive. To move on. To stop embarrassing everyone by making a big deal out of nothing. That was the moment I realized the betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was strategic. They had been talking without me. Deciding for me. Planning around me. I was the common thread, yet the last to know. My love had made me blind, and my silence had made me convenient. I felt humiliated, but not in the way movies show. There were no dramatic confrontations. No screaming. Just the quiet realization that I was alone in a room full of people who claimed to love me. That night, I cried without sound. Not because I lost them, but because I finally saw them. They never thought I'd notice. They never thought I'd question. And they certainly never thought I'd remember. But I did. And that was the beginning of everything changing. Pain changes you, but not all at once. First, it teaches you how to breathe without making a sound. After the truth settled in, I didn't confront anyone again. I didn't argue. I didn't demand explanations. I became exactly what they already believed I was: quiet, emotional, defeated. They mistook my silence for acceptance. In reality, it was survival. Every morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest, the kind that makes even simple tasks exhausting. I went through my days smiling when expected, nodding when spoken to, pretending nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. Trust had collapsed, and in its place stood a cautious awareness I had never known before. I cried alone, not the dramatic kind of crying, just silent tears that fell while I stared at the ceiling at night. I replayed conversations in my head, noticing the manipulation I once missed. The guilt, the gaslighting, the way my feelings were always dismissed, reframed, or used against me. For the first time, I stopped blaming myself. Instead of reacting, I started observing. I listened more than I spoke. I noticed how money moved through the house, how decisions were made without transparency, how my name was used when something needed to be justified. I learned when to stay in the room and when to step out. Knowledge became my shield. Quietly, I began rebuilding my independence. I took extra shifts without telling anyone. I saved small amounts they wouldn't notice were missing. I updated my resume late at night and applied for opportunities I had once been discouraged from pursuing. Each step felt small, almost insignificant, but together, they gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. I also stopped sharing my thoughts. No more dreams. No more fears. No more plans. I became emotionally unavailable to those who had taken advantage of my openness. They didn't notice at first. They were too comfortable with the version of me that always gave. And then something surprising happened. They grew careless. Believing I was still weak, they spoke freely around me. Shared plans they assumed I wouldn't understand. Left evidence behind without worry. I didn't interrupt. I didn't question. I remembered everything. The pain didn't disappear. Some nights it felt unbearable, like grief without a funeral. I mourned the family I thought I had. The love I thought was real. But grief has a strange way of sharpening you when you stop running from it. I promised myself one thing during those long nights. I would never beg for love again. I would never explain my worth to people committed to misunderstanding me. I didn't want loud revenge. I didn't want to hurt anyone the way they hurt me. I wanted truth. I wanted freedom. I wanted to walk away with my dignity intact. They thought my silence meant surrender. They never imagined it was preparation. And while they underestimated me, I was becoming someone they would no longer be able to control. The moment everything changed didn't come with drama. No shouting. No confrontation. No revenge speech. It came quietly, just like my pain had. By the time my plan unfolded, I was no longer reacting from hurt. I was calm, clear, detached, and that terrified them more than anger ever could. It started when I finally moved out, using an excuse they couldn't argue with: work. A better opportunity. Something they could brag about without realizing what they were losing. I didn't take much with me. Just my documents, my savings, and my self-respect. They thought I'd be back. They always did, but I didn't return. Instead, I let the truth surface on its own. The money they had taken from me, every temporary favor, every emotional demand, I had quietly documented. Dates, amounts, messages, promises, not for court, not for revenge, but for clarity, for proof that I hadn't imagined the exploitation. When financial pressure hit them, they turned on each other. My absence created a gap they couldn't fill. Suddenly, there was no one to sacrifice. No one to blame quietly. No one to lean on without consequences. Then came the relationship. The man who once told me I was too emotional lost the comfort of my loyalty. The woman he chose wasn't as forgiving. Secrets surfaced, lies overlapped, and the same family that once defended him began distancing themselves, unwilling to carry his mess now that I wasn't there to absorb it. I didn't expose anyone. I didn't need to. The truth has a way of becoming loud when the person holding it finally lets go. When my family reached out, it wasn't to apologize, it was to negotiate. To rebuild access. To restore the old balance where I gave and they took. That was the moment I realized how far I had come. I said no, not angrily, not bitterly, just calmly. I wish you well, I told them. But I'm choosing myself now. They didn't recognize my voice anymore. It didn't tremble. It didn't seek approval. It didn't explain. That was my sweet revenge. Watching them struggle with the consequences of choices they never thought would reach them. Watching them realize I was never weak, just kind. Watching them understand, too late, that love isn't infinite when it's abused. And me, I was at peace. I built a life that didn't require permission. I learned to trust myself again. I stopped confusing sacrifice with love and silence with strength. I became someone who could walk away without looking back. They never thought I'd win because they mistook my softness for fragility. But softness survived what cruelty couldn't. My victory wasn't their downfall. It was my freedom. And the lesson I carry now is simple, but powerful. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Especially the ones who loved you genuinely. Because when they choose themselves, they don't come back. They rise. That was my sweet revenge.